Hey guys, Chris here with Work to Game, and welcome to Crafting 101, a beginner's guide. Now if you're just here to ask why would I even level crafting, there's a few quality of life things that crafting provide to the game, just so you know why you're even going to dive down that rabbit hole. First is repairs, especially if you find yourself dying more in dungeons and you never remember to repair before you go in, you can always bring along this dark matter and repair your own gear as long as you have the right crafting classes above the minimum level for your gear level. Obviously, Alchemist is focused on potions and culinary and on food, so that's not going to help you with this, but you might find yourself looking at like armor if you're wearing a lot of metal armor, so things like Marauder. Blacksmith will be focused on those weapons for things like swords and axes. Carpenter on the other weapons like bows, staves. Goldsmith's on accessories, so you'll find that if you're just trying to level this by throwing money at it, which we can go over in a bit, it can be a little more expensive because obviously supply demand says everybody would want a goldsmith. And then we left out leatherworker for your people that wear leather armor like pugilist, rogue, and weaver, which is going to focus on your caster classes because it makes all the robes and everything. The next reason you might want to level crafting is convert. You could also throw desynthesize into this. That's a weird thing. Desynthesize into this because this helps you break down gear. Convert helps you with your spirit bonded gear you've used, but desynth just breakdowns all gear, so as you do your daily dungeons and stuff and you build up just gear you're never going to use, you can break it down into materials so you don't always feel like you have to turn everything in for seals. As a side note, this is also how you meld materia onto gear. So you don't just convert old gear down into materia. I never seem to get the good ones, but you can also take that and put it on your gear, which you'll need later on in life. So you either need to find a friend that can do this, or you're going to probably end up paying somebody. Now, I will warn you, desynth requires a ton of items to level, so it can be a real money sink if you're just trying to power it up. Now, the elephant in the room is to make money. By far, that is the most common way I see people get really, truly passionate about crafting. It is at least the bar by which crazy crafters that I've met define themselves, and they've got hundreds of millions of gil, and it is very, very easy to find, gather for free, buy materials really cheap, relative, and then turn that into gear that you're able to turn out huge amounts of money for, especially if you go for high quality. This is not only gear for people, this is also things like minions, furniture. A lot of these things are only attainable through crafting. You can always go out and grind your own gear, but if you're leveling multiple classes, sometimes people have a lot more money than they do time, and they will just go out and buy the gear for at least all their alternate classes to go ahead and just push them up to at least a relevant eye level. Keep in mind that for your friends, your family, or your guild mates, whoever you run with, yourself, making this own gear is also saving an enormous deal of money. Assuming that there's no one on your server that's just silly with how they price. So always check that first. Sometimes somebody is selling something for less than you can make it. Go ahead and take advantage of them. And then you can always focus on the items where supply demand is working appropriately and there is actually profit to be made. Last would be achievements. For those completionists out there, there are a whole tab of achievements. This is for things like number of items crafted in a certain range on a specific one of the 8 classes. This is things like number of high qualities made across your whole life as that crafter. This is also making a certain number of unique items, which is as simple as just making sure you've done everything once. That'll more than cover that. And so that's a lot of achievement points that you can pick up if you track that sort of thing. Now, I personally care a great deal about achievements, and so I always kind of try to do them as I go. I find that that's easier than going back and making hundreds of items later. I focus on high quality as like one day if I run out of achievements to do. So the ones I get, the ones I get. Otherwise, I really just kind of focus on making sure I've at least got the unique items and I've at least got the big chunk of items that will create the meta achievement that's going to give me my luminary weapon, my luminary crafting. So I can have like an amazing glowing, like for gathering it's a fishing rod, for this it's your little leatherworking thing, or your little needle and thread. Really excited that there's going to be new luminaries announced in the near future, and so I'm hoping that I've set myself up to go ahead and get all those almost immediately. Now, assuming by this point that you found at least one of the above mentioned reasons, or maybe your own reason for doing crafting, now you have to decide which of the 8 classes do you want to do first. The short answer to this is simple, whichever one you're willing to do. Honestly, if you're looking at just the cost of materials because you don't want to do any of your own gathering, that'll be a lot of supply demand. So I imagine, for example, with Stormblood coming out at the time of this recording, you're going to see a lot of people towards Red Mage, so Weaver may get more expensive to level, so it may be a really good time to level Blacksmith. Who knows? You're going to have to check your own market and get a feel for kind of what those key materials do and what the demand for those classes is, or just do the one you like. I started with Goldsmith because I figured it would affect the most of my classes. Worked out great. Had a blast. Culinarian so far has been what I think is the easiest. I don't have all my craftings at cap yet. Now, if you're having trouble deciding what classes you would need, if you just want to make a list of the ones you'd need for repairing for the classes that you play, you can keep track of, okay, so I need Goldsmith, I need at least one Blacksmith, and so maybe you don't have to get all of them right away. This, of course, is the short answer. The long answer is that you are going to want them all because they have cross-class abilities that help you guarantee that you're getting high quality and so on. So you at least at first want to get them all to 15. That's the first round of cross-class abilities. But then I think there's more at 37, more at 50. So you're going to eventually want to get them all. And this is something that will last the entire length of your account. You're talking months and months, if not years, that you're going to be glad you got all these to 50. So with so many to level, I don't necessarily think you have to just focus on what the most efficient for you way of leveling is. Maybe that's the most efficient time-wise and you have big piles of money. Maybe that's the most efficient money-wise because you've got lots of time but you are broke. Maybe you just want achievements. Maybe there's a lot of priorities you could have. You're going to have time to work with all of them because you may pick a method and you may stick with it all the way to cap with your first one and just push straight through. Then you may decide I want to do a little of each to get them all to 15. You may go ahead and just say, I just want to change up methods and get the second one all the way to 50. There really is no perfect method. It's a game. Just play it. It's just get them all to cap in your own time in whatever way works for you. That being said, if we do have to define things by different methods, I believe that the fastest, least amount of time played is going to be your leave quests. The majority of the time you have an active subscription to Final Fantasy XIV, you probably have this at cap. There are probably more days at cap than all the other amounts you have combined. It just, you think you're doing good for a little while and then you get behind on them and they just pile back up on you. So this would be the best method for you if you're just trying to see, can I hit 50 in a day? This is the only way that I think would be easy to go ahead and do that. Now these are broken down into zones, and obviously we've got 3 for Thanalan, 3 for Limsa, 3 for Gridania, and they actually go through the different zones, but there's also an Adventures Guild in the main cities that will let you get access to all of these, and that's where your market boards are, so that's most likely the place you're going to be doing the turn-ins. If you are going out into the world to turn all this stuff in as you go, level 20 is, I believe, where they're going to start all sharing the same cities. Limsa is going to have your Culinarian, your Blacksmith, and your Armorer. Those two are actually in the same place. Gridania is going to have your Carpenter and your Leatherworker. And Ul'dah is going to have your remaining ones there. That's your Weaver, that's your Goldsmith, and your Alchemist. Now, as I said, you're welcome to get your gathering classes out and go out and grind all the different materials you need. Some of them require killing things. Your odds are going to still go to the market board for at least a few things you couldn't find, and I think that most people probably just buy their way through this. If you wonder why high quality materials matter, high quality materials help you guarantee that a craft is high quality. It gives it like a starting chunk to work with, and so sometimes those have more value. Now as you turn in these leaves, turning in high quality items, if you're choosing to just buy the items outright and you kind of wonder what the advantage would be, it does give bonus experience. When you're crafting them, you get experience based on getting high quality ones, so if you're crafting your own items, you're kind of getting to double dip on this bonus. Now the first few levels of leaves, you can actually buy the materials from the vendors at the crafting place, and sometimes those are cheaper than the market boards. And for you thrifty people out there that heard that as, wait, can I just go there? Yes, you can go to any one of these, buy up all those low-level materials, and sell them on the market for any profit that there may be on your specific server. Now, just buying the items outright would probably be the most expensive way to level, but would be incredibly fast. You look up the items you need for your leaves for your level. You know, maybe there's 2 or 3 quests that you want to do. You buy up all of that item, you go over, you pick up the quest, you turn it in, you pick up the quest, you turn it in, and you just repeat until you run out of items. You go back to the market board and just keep throwing money at it until you run out of leaves or money I always run out of money first. But you will never get achievements doing this because you didn't craft anything. Now, assuming that you run out of leaves, or you just get tired of doing them before you finish your 8th class because you really are just powering through this, there are some other methods. You could just do the old-fashioned way. Just craft gear as you need it, sell gear with extra materials you have, and just kind of push your way through really, really slowly. Even if you wanted to do this quickly, I use this method a lot for leveling the few classes that I have left that I want to power up. You simply craft the first one of something so that you unlock Quicksynth. You sell it to Quicksynth. I'll tell it to make like 10, and then I'll go see if I can do a couple dishes real quick, or fold some laundry, or go get a drink. And then when I come back, it's completed. I take those 10 items, I sell them. The problem now is retainer space. You're generating huge amounts of items for every 5 or 10 levels that you get out of crafting this way. And depending on how many retainers you have and how fast your market is selling the items you chose to make, this could take a very long time to clear out your backlog. I sit down once or twice a week, I build up a huge backlog of items from the few that I have, and then I just log in from time to time and keep my retainers loaded down with 20 each. Now, I make a ton of money like this. I've learned that on my server, certain types of items seem to sell for a little bit more, so I'll maybe make 10 of those Quicksynthing as opposed to only 5 of something that I think is going to sell less, and I focus on variety instead of just quantity on the most profit, so that I'm diversified across as many things as possible, because I found that sells the most things. Yes, that's great if Boots of the Crafting from level 35 makes the most money per investment. It costs me 10 gil to buy all the materials, and it sells for 35,000 on my server. Wonderful. But how many people are going to need that without also needing the pants? So maybe the pants are a lower profit margin, but I'd rather have a few of the boots and a few of the pants listed so that that same person can buy 2 items from me instead of just 1. But like I said, I make a ton of money doing this. Right now it's February 4th, 2017 when I'm filming this, and I'm making anywhere between 100,000 and 500,000 gil per day just clearing out items from classes that I have partially leveled but not at cap. This goes up as they get to higher levels, but the investment also gets to be quite a bit more. And so you have to watch your market a little more, because if you lose a little money early on, odds are you're losing a couple hundred gil here and there. You won't even notice it. But when you get up to those higher levels, you may spend 40,000 making an item, and if it doesn't sell for 40,000, it can really tear through your reserves. This is when you want to click that history button in the market boards and make sure that when you're buying your materials, you're not just getting screwed on a few of them. Now, as I said, if you choose to do this by 24/7 crafting, you will level all your classes over a very short number of days, and you stand to make a ton of money doing it, and you'll get all the achievements, and that's wonderful, but you're probably going to overload your retainers with a backlog of things you don't want. What are you going to do with 100 belts? And my god, it is cold in this house. Clyde the couch bear is losing his mind. I cannot believe how cold it is, so I'm sorry if I'm shaking a lot here. Now, after these 2 main methods, you could look at doing like your crafting dailies for like the Moogle quests, or later on there's some early stuff, or your airship turn-ins, and these are nice because while they don't necessarily feel to me like I'm getting the most experience per hour or I'm making the most money or anything like that, I'm getting a lot of variety and I'm getting progress towards something outside of crafting. So I'm not just getting experience and money, but I'm also getting company seals, or I'm also getting reputation, or something like that. We're getting our airship contributed towards, and that's actually really rewarding and is a nice break of pace, because like I said, you got a lot of these things to level. So without getting too bogged down in every way you can get experience and what the most efficient is on my money and on my time, this guide is really just to go over how do I get started. This is just a lot. It's way too much information. I've never done crafting in an MMO before, and I just want the general overview idea. Those are some ways you can get started. Let's actually talk about the crafting itself, because it's its own unique system. I don't know of any other games that are an exact replica of it, and you might not have seen anything quite like this before. Now, obviously by this point you may be familiar with you using mana points, MP, to cast spells, but you may also have learned that if you go gather, you're losing GP, gathering points. This is CP, so if you haven't gained the pattern, it's crafting points. Now gather up everything you need for a class and prepare to use some CP. You see all the different items in there, You probably need to make sure you have enough shards up there. Those will run out from time to time. You can buy them in huge quantities if you don't want to go gather them. They also just seem to show up from time to time. Various things will drop them, things like time-worn maps or, like I said, gathering. And go ahead and press synthesize. You can't quick synth until you've made it once naturally. Quick synth, it just allows you to auto make things in batches. You can say, I want 27 of them. I want 99, especially when you're talking about things like making leather. I want 99 of these, and just let it roll. You'll kill your chances of doing high quality here, and if you choose to use high quality materials doing that, you're kind of wasting them, but you can totally use quick synth. I do. But first, let's just focus on synthesize. Now, the first thing I notice when I compare this to other games is that synthesis is not a guarantee. It's basically a mini game that you're going to play, and the goal is to get an item. Now, the UI that's going to pop up has a couple of key things in it. The first you're going to notice is durability. This is the most important part of this entire process. If durability hits 0, you're done. The items are gone, you are done. If you run out of durability and you haven't maxed out and finished the item, that's the end of the game, you lost. So managing your durability is the most important part of crafting. So let's not do that if possible. The next to notice is progress. This is actually your progress towards completion. The goal is to get this bar maxed out before you run out of durability. Now, if you've got those two under control, we can start to look at quality. You'll get bonus experience for driving this up, but most important about it is that it's a % chance to get a high quality version of that item. Now note that not all items even have a high quality version available, but most do. Now, as I kind of mentioned earlier, if you buy high quality materials at the start and you use those, that'll actually give a jump start to this at the beginning, making it much easier to focus on just driving that bar up from there instead of getting it all the way up there from 0. Now let's talk about CP for a second. This is what you use to use your abilities. Not all abilities cost this. Basic synthesis, for example, costs no CP, but things like mending are going to cost huge amounts of this. So you're going to use all of it eventually. But with that little bar down there aside, we do need to notice one last tiny little bit that most people probably ignore in the crafting pane, and that is the condition. Every step this can change, and it absolutely affects your efficiency. Now, efficiency is your ability to get high quality, so if you use this correctly, you can absolutely drive up high quality with huge returns. So the first one to watch for is excellent. This is a 10% chance and cannot appear off of any state except for normal. So if it was in normal in the previous step, you do a step, it jumps to excellent. This is your chance to get a huge amount of quality. It is a major bonus. The next down would be good. This is a minor bonus, so nothing crazy, but definitely still worth paying attention to. This is a 25% chance. Normal is the default, and you're gonna see that a lot. It's going to keep returning back to this. It's where it starts. It's no bonus. It's not a bad thing, but poor is. And poor absolutely reduces your chances and can actually only come after excellent, and it always does. So if you get an excellent step, the very next step will always be poor. That will give it a chance to return to normal, and then we can start this whole process over. Now, as you go through this, you may get to start focusing on high quality more and more, but only if your gear is up to date. And so you have to focus on that, and there's a couple of stats you're going to be looking for on your gear, so you'll know which piece you need to be replacing next, because it's not as simple as just looking at eye level. You may know, I've had plenty of CP lately, I just need more progress every time I do that. Now, this wasn't a problem at first. The first 5 levels, super easy. You could basically do it naked. But by the time you get to level 50, gear is an enormous role. The first is craftsmanship. Craftsmanship controls the amount of progress, so it's arguably the most important since it determines whether or not you're going to be able to complete this craft in the first place, because progress can end the game. So I would focus on craftsmanship first if I was trying to pick which item is my weakest, and they were all, I got a whole bunch of items that are level 10, I got to replace one of them. I would focus on the one with craftsmanship first, assuming that there's not a huge price difference in any of them or anything like that. The next would be CP, because that's what's giving me the ability to cast that extra mend, but there's kind of a threshold there. Picking up an extra 10 CP, odds are doesn't change the way I behave at all, but if I can pick up like an extra 100, that's an entire extra mend that I can get in, which gives me more durability. The last I would focus on is control. This is what gives you quality. And yes, quality is wonderful, bonus experience, high quality items are great, but I can succeed at crafting and at leveling without it. Now you'll notice basic, standard, and advanced of each of these abilities, and they all cost more CP. So as your abilities start to level up, you may notice that CP gets really tight really fast. Now once we've settled on our gear and we understand the 3 main stat points that we're looking at, you may want to look into some consumables. The Grand Company ones give you a bonus 50% experience on synthesis for 180 minutes, but each level has a cap. The first one's like only 20,000 experience, so you're gonna fly through that. But you could also look at food. Culinarians make it, you might be one, and this is gonna give a bonus 3% to your experience, and depending on which food you pick, it could also be giving a bonus experience to, a bonus percentage rather, to things like control or craftsmanship. So if you're having a little trouble with one of those, you could pick up like an extra bonus 8% or something like that, depending on what you eat. Okay, so I've got all this. I'm using my basic abilities. I'm just using basic synthesis. I'm cranking it up until I'm running low on durability. And then I'm using the ability that gives me more durability, and then I'm finishing the craft. What do I need all these cross-class abilities for, and all these other abilities that even my first class gives me? It's all about quality. All the other abilities are about quality. You can almost entirely play crafting if you're just trying to power level it up with just using the abilities that give you progress and then mending when you need more durability. The progress abilities are called synthesis, and the quality abilities are called touch. There's a basic mend that gives you back like 30 durability, and then as you get more advanced, it'll give you back bigger and bigger chunks. Obviously, make sure that you get your durability down low enough before you cast them, because you can't have more durability than the max amount. So if the item you're crafting starts with 80 out of 80 and you go to 70 out of 80, and then you choose to craft and use a mend, it'll just push it back up to 80 out of 80, even though that really would have been 100 out of 80, just because you didn't wait long enough. And so you may want to go ahead and drive it all the way down to 10 or 20 durability before you use your mend, knowing you're going to, but make sure you save enough CP, because otherwise you're going to fail the craft. Now there's another ability sometimes people notice called Observe, and it says you can skip a step. They wonder why I would even want to do that. There's unstable elements and things like later, and you'll understand those when you get to them. For now, just ignore it. Just get started and just focus on maxing out your progress bar while watching your durability. Keep in mind that your progress bar is not a guarantee. It's just a % chance that step can fail. And so a lot of times I'll go ahead and try to finish a craft with like 20 durability remaining, because I don't want to fail. And that way, if it fails, I still have one more shot at it when I'm at 10 durability. And so just kind of keep that in mind. Figure this out as you go, and go ahead and dive in. We've touched on a couple ways to start leveling. We've touched on what the different crafting classes do and why you would want all of them. We've even touched on the kind of gear you're going to do, the kind of abilities you're going to see. You're going to have to keep going back every 5 levels and completing your quest if you want to get some free gear and unlock some new abilities and things like that. So you're going to want to go ahead and push through those. And so now we get to kind of just say, go. There are much more advanced things, like we can talk about different rotations, the best use of abilities, how to kind of maximize my CP, and how to take the best advantage of the durability I'm given. And as you level up more classes, like I said, getting them all to 15 is a good start. You can go ahead and notice those cross-class abilities. Those are going to help the classes play a lot more consistently. There are people out there who prefer certain classes over others, leveling first because of their cross-class abilities, because they're not all created equal. So if you're deciding which class to pick up as your 3rd crafting class or your 7th crafting class, you might use that as the determining factor. And you may want to get more into desynthesize. Gosh, I struggle with that word. And that'll really make its own money, and it's kind of its own kind of game in its own. It's really easy. You just push desynth, but you can only have a certain amount of desynthesis across all your crafting classes, and so once you run into that cap, it starts to kind of knock others down. And so you may want to focus on a few classes for that. You may want to get into converting or Matera, and you may want to just focus on making money. Picking the right gear to make heavy profit margins can result in huge amounts of money to pile up, and the richest people I know are always crafters. Second richest are gatherers, and then there's all those other people, and it just comes down to playtime for them. And if that's your goal, you may want to start, if you just want to kind of have an idea of where to look for high profit items, at your leaves. Look up the crafting leaves, because a lot of people that level up crafting only do it for that repair or for the achievements or for a cross-class ability for a crafting class they do enjoy. And so they're leveling up these other classes, and they've got money, and they're just throwing money at it. And the easiest way to do that is those leaves. So if you make the items for those leaves, especially if you're doing lower level items than what you are, where making high quality is very, very easy because your quality abilities gives these huge boosts, you can mark all this up, and then you go buy the materials cheap, sell those completed items for more. There's always a demand for them. And they can come in, buy them, level up their classes really, really fast. They're not going to compete with you in the market. That's not why they're doing this. And you can take their huge piles of money and make them your own. There are a lot of people with a lot of money in this game to burn because there's very few money sinks. So crafting items for those people is absolutely a way to get your hands on some of their money. And just like every other part of Final Fantasy, there is a huge community supporting this. You can go out and find guides on how to maximize your rotation. You can go out there and find guides on which classes have the best cross-class abilities, or you can get into the real nitty-gritty of what drives high quality, what are your percent chances of things, and really get down to the math and max minning. This was all pretty overview, pretty basic. So you can dive in and totally just play crafting and totally forget about DPS and healing and tanks, and you can just be a provider for the whole server. And that's its own game. There are a lot of people that get a lot of joy out of that. The hardest part's going to be managing your retainers at that point. But with that said, feel free to let me know in the comments if I skipped over something you feel would be important to a beginner. I was just trying to give an introduction to crafting here, and I think that there's a lot more advanced guides we could get into on the other aspects of crafting. I would love the feedback, or let me know how your crafting's going. If this is your first time crafting, welcome. We'd love to hear from you. Let me know what struggles you have or any questions you may have. This is absolutely a forum, and just share your experience with us in the comments below. I hope this helps. Please press like if it does, if you like this video or other guides here on Work to Game. We post videos almost every day. Saturdays are usually our guides. And please just give us feedback. We love to just interact with you. We have an incredible community. If you haven't joined, push that subscribe button right before you push on where the next video is going to take you. This is YouTube. It's always going to feed you the next great content. Hopefully it's one of ours. Otherwise, I'm sure it's wonderful. And thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. This has been Chris here at Work to Game, and I'll see you next time.